We're recording here. Good. Timestamp. I'd just like y'all to know I got an A++ with a smiley face on it for my essay on this topic, so I think I'm qualified to talk about it. Post-World War II, the United States appeared to be an age of mind-numbing agreement and conformity, the likes of which there was never seen before, or probably again. Just imagine, you fought in the largest war your country's ever seen, and you won, and now there's this new lad called Truman in office, and you're like, oh damn, I didn't even notice he was there. But suddenly you get this deep, strong feeling of patriotism as you're looking at this man's beautiful face on the TV. Because you have one of those now. Because your wife, who's like barely 21, had invested these neat little things called war bonds. So now instead of sitting around all day, drinking yourself near deaf and blind and living in squalor, you're buying a house in a fancy new suburb, with practically genetically cloned houses, neighbours and dogs, and a homeowners association. Yes, you're living the good life. Eating at Wendy's and getting a hard-on for your president until Richard Nixon. In 1954, McCall's magazine coined the term togetherness to describe a general lack of a shit that the American population gave about social, economic and political issues. This widespread atmosphere of cultural consensus was partly achieved due to an increase in the average Joe Schmo's standard of living. Between 1947 and 1960, the number of families that could be considered middle class grew from 5.7 million to roughly 12 million, and the idea of the perfect middle class family became the main goal of most Americans. And oh my god, there's a spider there. Ah, fuck. It's a little tiny baby spider. Oh yeah, so you know those pictures of American families and they're standing next to more food than you can buy in like 7 Asdas? I'm really proud of that one. I had to Google, do Asda sell food? Apparently they do. Well, my history book just goes on about them for like a whole page, so we'll skip that part. Bottom line is, there's more food than you can shove up Emmanuel Macron's arsehole, and that's a good thing. Alright, let's talk about Ralph Nader, big critique of consumerism, and overall Harvard Law graduate extraordinaire. I genuinely wrote that. He wrote this book called Unsafe at Any Speed, which pointed out the defects in a General Motors car, and generally spit facts for 298 pages or so. I don't know, I didn't read it, but according to Amazon it's 1.2 millionth in the top 100 books list, which is good for him, I guess. And then there's Michael Harrington's 1962 masterpiece, which he called Other America, in which he points out that 20% of the US population lived under the poverty line, which was definitely a blunder on their part. They probably should have, figured that out quicker. And then my history book goes on to talk about these guys called the Beatniks, who we might today describe as burnt-out whiskey millennial mouth-breathing bohemian cottagecore double mocha cobalt latte drinking motherfuckers breaking society returning to the monkey, but in the 1950s. So as the post-war period continued, the relationship between the United States and the Soviet Union deteriorated, or as some might say, dropped like a lead horse on crack. On March 12, 1947, President Truman presented an address before a joint session of Congress, which was creatively referred to as the Truman Doctrine, in which he stated those lads over there are mean, nasty, and cannot be trusted. He also asked for $200 million in military and economic assistance for Turkey and Greece because they were like Cuba in reverse. $400 million. Fucking hell. As this new Cold War progressed, the United States saw an increase in anti-communist sentiment. Truman kept ramping up the national phobia of communism. Meanwhile, Protestant evangelical preachers like Billy Graham made such statements as, "The world is divided into two camps. On one side we see communism, has declared war against God, against Christ, and against the Bible." He wasn't really that wrong. You can look it up yourself. The House of Un-American Activities, or HUAC, for those pressed for time and or experiencing the symptoms of a stroke, began hearings in 1947 to investigate subversive activities in the US. And on Jeremy Corbyn's leg hairs, that sounds like... fuck. I'm fine. And on Jeremy Corbyn's leg hairs, that sounds like a North Korea-style deep state orgy cult. Witnesses will be asked, are you or have you ever been a member of the Communist Party? Which would have been a straight-out honest question if the witnesses could plead the Fifth Amendment, which they couldn't. And so, with this newfound completely justified power, the HUAC immediately went for Hollywood, claiming it was infiltrated by communists, and that would make Truman come out with some sort of commie rash. For the first round in 1947, the Hollywood 10 refused to speak to the HUAC about their political views, and so were jailed for this. Fair enough. Soon after, the Committee for the Fifth Amendment was established, which saw much backlash, including stones being thrown at a movie screen. As a member of the committee, Katharine Hepburn appeared in a film. I also have many questions. This led to many of the Hollywood 10 being blacklisted from the film industry, as anti-communist sentiment continued into the 1950s. But the HUAC wasn't done yet. Truman's commie rash was only getting stronger. And so, between 1951 and 1954, 90 actresses, actors, producers, and directors were questioned by the HUAC, who subsequently named 300 alleged communists in Hollywood, with the leader of the Screenwriters Union, Ronald fucking Regan, cooperating with the HUAC by blacklisting these names. This attack on Hollywood, unfortunately, led to a decline in movies showcasing progressive commentaries on socio-political issues, and rather the idea of pure entertainment, matched with strong anti-communist sentiment. One such pivotal moment in this movement was the prosecution of Alger Hiss by Richard Nixon. Hiss, who had graduated from two of America's most respected universities, had served in the State Department and become one of the closest advisors of President Roosevelt during his time in office, was brought before the State Department in 1948, in which he was charged for perjury after cross-questioning from Nixon, who had been practically breastfed incriminating information from the FBI. This brought Richard Nixon to fame and the American public to paranoia, as now anyone could potentially be a commie. The Red Scare embodied many of the negative effects of cultural consensus in America. It was a story of how fear can erode away a democracy's constitution, and the inalienable rights afforded to those under that constitution. In contrast to this, the era of cultural consensus in America saw the re-emergence and re-realization of the American dream, coupled with a widespread economic stability, which set the groundwork for a very successful America. Right, well, we're done with that.